Hello everyone and welcome back to the Pumpkin Patch. I'm Jessica Moser and I'm your host for this day of Halloween. I hope you're excited to watch this episode because I'm excited to talk to you guys about these movies and the other media selection we have for you today. Our first selection of the day is the 1976 classic movie, Carrie, adapted from a Stephen King novel that came out in 1974 of the same name. This was actually the first Stephen King book that was adapted into a movie. In fact, Stephen King was only paid $2,500 for the rights to this book. And his name is spelled wrong in the credits. It's spelled Steven instead of PH. I think he ended up being okay. This movie stars Sissy Spacek. This movie also has PJ Soles from Halloween, who we also really love here at the Fall Horsemen. Also, John Travolta is in this movie, and it's directed by Brian De Palma, who's a great director. In the plot of this movie, Sissy Spacek plays 16-year-old Carrie White, who's pretty shy and reserved but is bullied at school a lot. In one of the bullying incidents, her gym teacher breaks up the incident, but all the kids who are bullying her get detention. Those kids then decide that they're going to get revenge on Carrie because they got detention. They were bullying her. They were bullying her, by the way, by throwing tampons at her and yelling at her to plug it up because she just got her first period, which, yikes. We also see that Carrie is also bullied at home by her mom, who is very religious and says things to Carrie like the reason why she got her first period is because she was sinning. And also, at one point, when Carrie's wearing a prom dress, she says that she can see her dirty pillows. I think that's the first use of the phrase dirty pillows. I thought that was kind of unintentional comedy. In order to get their revenge, the kids from her high school decide they're going to go to a local farm and kill a bunch of pigs and drain their blood. Maybe for an iconic scene that you'll see later in the movie. If you haven't seen Carrie, I won't spoil this for you, but the blood plays a major part in Carrie, just FYI. Meanwhile, while the kids from her school are plotting their revenge, Carrie discovers that she has telekinetic powers. That may also come into play later in the movie, perhaps at the prom. If you haven't seen it, Carrie is absolutely worth a watch. And one of the reasons why it's definitely worth a watch is because of Sissy Spacek. This is her first major role, though you wouldn't know it. She's nominated for an Oscar for this role and just absolutely embodies the character of Carrie throughout this film. When Sissy Spacek was called to audition for this movie, she had a commercial acting gig booked for the same day. She canceled that gig, put some Vaseline in her hair, I guess to like help it be straight or whatever. I don't know why people put Vaseline in their hair. I have really oily skin, not something I would do. Whatever. But she put some Vaseline in her hair and then she just went out determined to get this role. And guess what, you guys? She did it. She absolutely owns the performance of Carrie. And there's a scene where Carrie's hand comes out of some dirt. I won't tell you about the circumstances because I don't want to spoil it. But Sissy Spacek insisted that it be her hand and not a stunt performer. So they had to bury her. Brian De Palma, the director, actually refused to bury her, so they got her husband to bury her in dirt and rocks so that she could like put her hand through for that scene. Incredible, and again, like what a kick butt just woman overall. Like so impressed. I was so impressed when I was doing this research and I was reading all this stuff about Sissy Spacek. I was just blown away. Like wow. The movie Carrie had a $1.8 million budget and then grossed $33.8 million in theaters. Stephen King didn't get any of the residuals, but I think he's doing alright. You can find Carrie on Amazon Prime, Sling, and also if you have cable, AMC plays Carrie throughout the month of October, and so set your DVR or watch it live with commercials. Does anyone do that anymore? I don't know. But I think Carrie's definitely worth a watch, and don't forget that Carrie White burns in hell. For our overlooked movie, we've chosen the 2008 Canadian horror film Pontypool. Pontypool is actually a town in Ontario, Canada, and weirdly enough, the Canadian branch of the Fall Horsemen also live in Ontario. Do they live in this tiny town filled with not zombies? Because again, we have another movie where they do not call them zombies. Maybe for the dumbest reason that I've ever heard, but they do not call them zombies in Pontypool. This movie was made in 2008. This is the peak time for people to make movies about zombies but not call them zombies, just based on the other movies that I've covered for this channel. Director Bruce McDonald insisted that the zombies be called conversationalists instead. Conversationalists? Yes, Pumpkin Patch. I did not make that up. Bruce McDonald made that up. This movie was written by Tony Burgess, and it's based on a book also written by Tony Burgess of the same name. Bruce McDonald said they were called conversationalists because of the 3 stages of the disease that take place in Pontypool. First, the person who's infected starts stumbling over their words, much like I'm doing in this video, and then starts repeating one word over and over again, like honey or baby or sweetheart. It's usually a term of endearment. The second stage is that the language becomes stuttered and stilted. And then the third stage is that people get so frustrated by the fact that they are having a hard time with the language that they start wanting to bite each other's mouths. You can judge that as you will. I'm presenting the rest of that without any further commentary, I guess. So whatever. In the plot of this movie, in the small town of Pontypool, a shock jock named Grant Mazzy goes to work one day and starts getting reports that people are rioting in the streets and that people are perhaps attacking each other and then maybe even trying to take bites out of each other. During the day at the radio station, they get various calls and go live on a bunch of people who are reporting in about this experience. And then they get a radio transmission that's in French. The transmission in French instructs them to stay indoors, to not use any terms of endearment, to not use rhetoric, and then also says that don't translate this message. Well, too late. Somebody at the radio station already translated the message. That's how they knew what it said. Unfortunately, it looks like some words in the English language have become infected. And if you say those words in the English language, then perhaps you're going to become a conversationalist, which is a zombie. They're just calling it conversationalist because for reasons that I told you before. There's a sequel in development. I was wondering if for the sequel we could choose the English language words that are infected so that perhaps people won't say them anymore. Like, for instance, I don't love the word moist. So if that could be one of the words that's infected, that we just choose another way to say moist, perhaps that would be a good use of our time and energy. Maybe instead of thinking of another term for zombie, unless, is the word zombie infected? Is that when we don't say zombie? Is that when we have to say conversationalist for purposes of this? I don't know. Pontypool is a bit of a comedy. It was described by a reviewer on Rotten Tomatoes as witty but restrained. It's still funny. But what? Wait. I'm repeating a word. Does that mean the word zombies is infected? Does that mean I'm gonna become a conversationalist because I said the word zombie? For the first half of our late night double feature picture show, we've chosen the 2004 horror musical comedy Dead and Breakfast. Dead and Breakfast was directed by Matthew Lutweiler and stars Ever Carradine, Gina Phillips, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who plays the sheriff in this movie. It also has Portia de Rossi, Eric Palladino, Oz Perkins, Jeremy Sisto, and Bianca Lawson. I love Bianca Lawson. She's been in Pretty Little Liars, which is a show I enjoyed, and also she was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This movie made its debut at the South by Southwest Festival in Austin, Texas, and it was made for a budget of $500,000. It definitely falls into the like low budget horror comedy. But we love a low budget horror comedy here at the Fall Horsemen. Six friends are traveling in an RV to a wedding in Texas. Along the way, they get lost near the town of Lovelock, Texas. In Lovelock, they find a bed and breakfast and they decide to stay there for the evening instead of spending the night in their RV. Also, this is 2004, so it's before Airbnb. Perhaps if Airbnb existed, the reviews could have warned them away from this particular bed and breakfast. The bed and breakfast is owned by a creepy man named Mr. Wise, and the chef there is named Henry. Or Henri, for using the French pronunciation. I don't know. We're gonna call him Henri for the purposes of this video, because I can't remember how they pronounce it in the movie. And I'm not looking up a clip right now to figure it out. The friends all go to bed, and then one of the friends sneaks back downstairs for a late night snack and discovers that Henri has been brutally murdered, and then Mr. Wise has a heart attack. They try to call the sheriff, but the phone lines are down. They have to wait until the morning to go get the sheriff. When the sheriff arrives, he immediately takes the keys to the RV away from them because he says they have to stay in town until they determine who committed this murder. The sheriff also arrests a mysterious drifter who he suspects may have committed this murder. The drifter warns him of an ancient wooden box that may unleash something supernatural. The friends discover the ancient wooden box in the bed and breakfast and immediately open it, because of course they do, because this is a horror movie. Because of course they do, because their curiosity gets the best of them, and who wouldn't just open an ancient wooden box? Not that I've ever done this and unleashed some kind of evil, otherworldly spirits anywhere, but I'm just saying, it's completely defensible that they did this. When they open this ancient wooden box, it unleashes a series of events that causes possessions. Zombies. Hey you guys, we finally found a movie made in the 2000s that actually calls zombies zombies. Congratulations to us. Also, black magic. Highly recommend Dead and Breakfast. It's also a musical, so that's fun too. Unfortunately, it's not available in any streaming services right now, so you have to rent it in order to watch it. Or go to your local video store and get it on DVD. Is that still a thing? Maybe Redbox has it? I don't know. It's a fun movie, and they actually call zombies zombies, so points to them. For the second half of our late night double feature picture show, we've chosen Abraham Lincoln vs. Zombies from 2012. This movie was produced by the Asylum. In Asylum tradition, this is a mockbuster, so it was heavily inspired by the Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter movie. It's directed by Richard Shankman. This movie had a $150,000 budget, so it's again another low budget horror comedy movie. But actually, Bill Oberst Jr., who plays Abraham Lincoln, does a great job as Abraham Lincoln. His performance was widely praised, and normally in a mockbuster, you're not getting a great performance from any of the actors. They're usually local to the area. In fact, this movie was filmed in Savannah, Georgia, so here in the South, and it was filmed using mostly local actors. They originally wanted to film the movie in Tennessee, but I think that sweet, sweet Georgia tax credit definitely lured them into Georgia and away from Tennessee. There's a fort in Savannah too. That was a big part of the plot. In the beginning of this movie, 10-year-old Abraham Lincoln is seen tending to his mother who's sick with a disease that requires her to be tied down to the bed. His dad commits suicide in front of him. Ooh, dark right off the bat, right you guys? And then 10-year-old Abraham Lincoln takes a scythe and tells his mom he loves her and then beheads her. Then we fast forward straight to the presidency. So we don't see any other parts of Abraham Lincoln's life. Abraham Lincoln personally leads the Secret Service to investigate a zombie outbreak. Again, we found another movie who, even in the title, uses the word zombie. They fear that the zombie outbreak has come to Fort Pulaski during the Civil War. They have to figure out how to effectively contain that zombie outbreak. And so the rest of the movie is really about that zombie outbreak. During the movie, Abraham Lincoln does run into an old flame who's become a sex worker, but she is sheltering a young Theodore Roosevelt from the zombie outbreak. Just as an example of some things that happen in this movie. This is a spoiler, so you might want to fast forward like 30 seconds if you don't want to know this part. But basically, at the end of the movie, Abraham Lincoln's right hand, John Wilkinson, who's been working with him in the Secret Service the entire time, Abraham Lincoln gets infected with the zombie virus, and John Wilkinson is actually John Wilkes Booth. Abraham Lincoln actually planned his own assassination, which is an example of a plot point in this movie, just to show you how much they inject comedy into it. Abraham Lincoln vs. Zombies is available on Vudu, Tubi, Pluto TV, which are all free, and then Peacock if you're a Peacock subscriber. Or if you're just subscribing to Peacock so that you can watch Halloween Kills and then cancel your subscription, you probably have it for a month. You can watch Abraham Lincoln vs. Zombies there too. For our Halloween and other media selection, we have selected the DC animated movie Batman Gotham by Gaslight. We love DC animated content here at the Fall Horsemen, and especially the Bat family. I specifically love the Bat family. I really love all the Robins and Batgirl, but I love Batman too, of course. This animated movie is directed by Sam Liu, that was written by Brian Augustine and Mike Mignola. You may know Mike Mignola because of Hellboy. This movie is set in Victorian era Gotham, and Batman, Bruce Wayne, is still Batman in this world. The movie opens with him saving 3 kids named Dickie, Jason, and Timmy. Wonder if those kids will come back in future Batman content. I don't know. So he rescues these 3 kids, and then he defeats their handler so that they're free. It was obvious to Batman that the handler was abusive, and so he helps these kids out. At the same time, on a different side of town, a woman named Ivy, who is a dancer and a sex worker, is assaulted and killed by Jack the Ripper. The Gotham police quickly believe that Batman and Jack the Ripper are one and the same, and so Batman has to investigate who in fact is Jack the Ripper so that he can clear his own name. Some overarching parts of this movie include the Gotham City World's Fair is going on during this time, and so the background scenery and pieces of this animated feature have that element to it, which is really nice. The artwork is very well done. Also, we get to see Selena Kyle, who's another one of my favorite DC characters, and she gets involved in the investigation, and she originally believes Batman is guilty and then ends up helping Bruce Wayne to investigate this crime further. So it's a really interesting and very well done movie. We really loved it. Because it involves Jack the Ripper, it has some spookier content and some spookier themes. So it's definitely adult level content. Just because it's animated, it's not for children. We're not recommending it for children. But I think you'll really enjoy it. You can find it on HBO Max. I highly recommend HBO Max for many things. But if you're a DC Animated Universe fan, they house a lot of their content on HBO Max. So I hope you enjoy. Alright, Pumpkin Patch, that's it for today. You got your 4 movies and your 1 other media selection from me today. I hope you enjoy all of them. And please be sure to click or treat, and that means to like, share, subscribe. But again, if all you'd ever do is watch these videos, we love you and we appreciate you always, and appreciate you listening to our recommendations and maybe listening to me and some of my friends ramble a little bit about something that we love so much. So thank you so much for riding with Fall Horsemen, where Halloween lives and fall is forever. Stay spooky. Victorian era Gotham. Ooh, it's hard to say. And not some other word to describe what is actually a zombie. Personally leads the sacred service. No, that's not actually right. The sacred service that the person has the first time Abraham Lincoln in this movie, but this movie was written and directed not Canadian horror film. Definitely, if just off the top, that's tripping over my words today. I don't know if you've ever the blood. Weird. Gosh, that seems. You can just cut that whole part from Halloween, who we love here on the at the. I'm excited to talk about some of these movies. Maybe not all. No, don't use that. You're right there. This movie stars too many S's in a row. After the message is translated in Pontypool of our late to menstruate, which no, Carrie White burns in hell.